Today on the show, we are going to talk about reversing Hashimoto's. So often when we're diagnosed with Hashimoto's, we're like, what can we do about it? Can it be cured? Can it be reversed? Can we put it into remission? All these different questions come up. And my guest today, Dr. Anshul Gupta, has written a book called Reversing Hashimoto's. And so we're going to explore what does that actually mean, as well as some fantastic, really simplified and quite logical approach to managing thyroid health. You're going to find this conversation, it's clear Dr. Gupta is really good at cutting through the overwhelm and a lot of that sort of detailed information and simplifying it so that it just makes sense. I think you're going to find this a really, an easy conversation to listen to, because Dr. Gupta just puts things really simply, logically, and yet adds a depth of experience that I guess just comes with being an experienced practitioner dealing with thyroid patients. So let me introduce Dr. Gupta to you. Dr. Anshul Gupta is a best-selling author, speaker, researcher, and a world expert in Hashimoto's disease. He educates people worldwide on reversing Hashimoto's. He's a board-certified family medicine physician, so that's a bit like being a general practitioner, with advanced certification in functional medicine, peptide therapy, and he's also has a fellowship trained in integrative medicine. He's worked in the prestigious Cleveland Clinic Department of Functional Medicine alongside Dr. Mark Hyman. So if you've been around these circles, you probably will have heard of Dr. Hyman. So he's helped thousands of patients to reverse their health issues. He's really focused in on developing that real specialty in treating Hashimoto's patients. And his patients love him because he was recognised with the Reader's Choice Award as Best Doctor in the Northern Neck area. He's now on a mission to help 1 million people reverse their health conditions. And part of achieving this goal of his is to have written the book Reversing Hashimoto's, which we do talk about obviously in this conversation. And you can grab your own copy. I've had a read. I loved it. Lots of highlights. It was just like this conversation. It was clear. It was logical. And I think particularly if you are fairly new in your Hashimoto's journey, it would be an excellent book to read because you won't feel overwhelmed. You'll feel like you've been given lots of great helpful information and a plan to help manage your thyroid health. Hi, and welcome to the Let's Talk Thyroid podcast, where we discuss different aspects of living a healthy thyroid lifestyle, positively and practically, so that you can really thrive and not just survive. So join me, your host, Annabelle Bateman, and let's talk thyroid. Well, Dr. Anshul Gupta, thank you so much for coming and being a guest on the Let's Talk Thyroid. I'm really looking forward to talking with you today.
Thank you, Annabelle, for having me on the show. I am really privileged to be here.
Yeah, we're going to have a great time, actually. I've read your new book, which has only just come out, and I know that's one of the things we're going to cover, and it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to sharing some of that information with my listeners through you and certainly helping you spread your positive messages about Hashimoto's. But before we dive into that, Dr. Gupta, would you just tell my audience a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So by training, I'm actually a family physician, which is like a general practitioner. So that's what I started doing. Did that for more than 5 years, but I was actually having my own health issues. So that's where I delved into the realm of integrative medicine and functional medicine, was able to reverse my own health issues. And then I started working in the Cleveland Clinic Functional Medicine Department, which is the only academic institute in the whole world which actually has a functional medicine dedicated department. So I was doing research, on different protocols, of chronic diseases. And that's where I focused on Hashimoto's. Research Hashimoto's, developed my own 3-step protocol with it. And that's what then I try to help people from all over the world to reverse their Hashimoto's. That's what I've been doing for the last couple of years now.
Wow. So in terms of doing that all around the world, do you do sort of remote consultations yeah?
That is correct. Yes. So I do virtual consultations where we use Zoom or other platforms to offer consultations to people. The good part is that everybody works with me directly. So I am their nutritionist, I am their health coach, I am their doctor, everything. So kind of one-stop shop and they get everything. So I make a comprehensive personalized functional medicine plan for them to help them to reverse their Hashimoto's, in the course of few months. So we obviously talk about diet, we talk about supplements, advanced testing, toxins, infections, all of those things which we feel is important to reverse their Hashimoto's. We kind of work on all of that stuff. So which are kind of, like similar all over the world, like since I've started working with people from different countries, different continents, I realized the theme is the same. So this Hashimoto's is not only in the United States, is the number one autoimmune disease all over the world. So, and the triggers and the underlying factors are also very, very similar. So we have actually getting good success that I have been able to help out several females or several people across the globe to kind of get their life back, from Hashimoto's.
That's great. I mean, the world's just so interconnected now. I think that's wonderful that you're able to offer that service to anyone around the world. That's great. Do you find that people have similar frustrations with the traditional medical system in dealing with their Hashimoto's across the world?
Absolutely. So conventional medicine training is almost similar, like that's what I believe in all over the world. I have dealt with medical training in two different places because I initially got trained in India in the medical system. Then I moved to United States and got trained over there also. So the conventional system is exactly the same, that they do not recognize Hashimoto's as being a different entity. They feel Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism is exactly the same. So they're trying to treat Hashimoto's as a hypothyroid patient. They're only looking at the TSH, which is very limited view of thyroid. And the only goal for them is to keep TSH in range. That's it. Most of the physicians do not care about their patients' symptoms, what they are feeling, whether they're getting better or not. They do not even care to test, their patients for Hashimoto's. Nobody is following their antibodies, and nobody has any solutions to give to actually improve their autoimmune process and actually improve Hashimoto's. So what I've seen is that this theme is across the globe. The conventional doctors everywhere do not understand Hashimoto's completely. And it is the most mismanaged condition, I will say, all over the world right now.
Which is crazy given it's the most common autoimmune disease, that it's the most, well, maybe because it's the most common. Yeah, but that's crazy, isn't it?
It is astonishing, and I was very perplexed too, initially, because with my medical training too, I always thought, okay, thyroid being hypothyroid, and I was not doing Hashimoto's antibodies on my own too. Until when I worked at the Cleveland Clinic, I saw this consistent theme that, these females are coming to see me and they have consistently been told they have hypothyroid, and they were all suffering. They were all feeling brain fog. They had weight issues. They were all tired. They had mood changes, feeling depressed, anxious, gut problems, constipation, IBS, infertility. Across the globe, like these symptoms were present in all these females, and they had no clue or no idea. All their doctors were kept on telling them, your lab work looks normal. You are fine. You're on the right medicines. You're fine. And they kept on telling them, we are not fine. Can you help us out more? And obviously they had an answer, no, we cannot do anything else. Maybe it's all in your head. So I was like, not all females are crazy. It cannot be possible that suddenly all the females are getting crazy across the globe. So if each and every female is suffering and not able to get better, that means we need to change our attitude. We need to kind of look for answers. While most of the doctors, they are so satisfied with what they have been told that they are not doing their own research to find answers. And that's exactly when I try to look, for reasons about Hashimoto's and how we can help those females out.
Yeah. So we'll get into some of those, that detail in a minute, but you've called your book that you've written Reversing Hashimoto's. So what do you mean by what does that mean to you? Like, what if I was to come to you and say, does it mean getting rid of it? Is it curing it? Or what does reversing Hashimoto's mean to you?
Great question. Again, the reversing this, word is so confusing for a lot of people, because this is the first time that for an autoimmune condition or even a chronic condition that I'm using the word reversing. Once you get a chronic condition, whether that is Hashimoto's, thyroid, diabetes, hypertension, that means that you cannot reverse it. It's not curable. You are going to live with that disease for the rest of your life. But what I have seen is that if we follow the protocol, if we do right things, then first of all, we can reverse a lot of symptoms associated with Hashimoto's.
Mhm.
We can reverse, like or improve the quality of life of a majority of the patients with Hashimoto's. We can improve their antibody levels, which is the actual reason of causing Hashimoto's. So we are reversing Hashimoto's by improving their antibody levels. A lot of times we are also able to get people off medicines or at least reduce the amount of thyroid medicines also. Now, that being said, that doesn't happen in everybody because Hashimoto's is an autoimmune condition. Now, if that autoimmune condition has destroyed their thyroid gland completely, then obviously they will need some support. But the problem is just not about Hashimoto's. Once you have an autoimmune condition, you do not work on it, then ultimately you get more and more autoimmune conditions. And then obviously your quality of life gets worse and you get on more and more medications. So that's the way it's like, the reversing Hashimoto's include all of these things together to understand what that means.
Because it's about dealing with the autoimmune aspect. Is that what you mean?
That is correct. So the most common answer I give or help people understand is that let's say people get like a pneumonia, which is like a lung infection, right? The lung infection is because of a bacteria which people get exposed to, which goes to the lungs, causes an infection. The treatment of it is they give antibiotics and people are cured from pneumonia or the lung infection, right? Now we call that as a cure. Now does that guarantee that people are not going to get pneumonia again? Now, if you get exposed to that bacteria again, if your immunity is low again, you are going to get pneumonia again or lung infection. So does that mean that, okay, you are not cured? You are in remission from pneumonia? Not really, right? We cure it as a cure. So same thing with Hashimoto's, that when people work with me through protocols, if the antibody levels come back normal, if your thyroid numbers come back normal, if your symptoms go away, that means we have cured that condition. Now, if you get exposed to those triggers again, like toxins or infections or stress or other bad things in the environment, yes, that is going to cause Hashimoto's again. But that doesn't mean that you are in remission. You were cured, but you got it. You can get it again because you got exposed to things which actually initially started the Hashimoto's.
So you can have it re-triggered, is what you're saying.
That is correct.
Okay. Is that, I haven't heard that perspective before in terms of it being cured. I've definitely in terms of remission and re-triggered, but not actually being cured. But you would call that being cured. Is that what? Yeah. Okay.
That's what I will say, because from, as I said, everybody's hesitant in calling it as a cure. But then when I try to give them a simile about like a lung infection and Hashimoto's, I said, how are they different? Because my patients, when they come to see me, their symptoms are completely gone. They're living their life to the fullest. Their life is much better than what it ever has been. And plus, their antibody levels are much lower or sometimes even back to normal. So why should I not call it cure? Why should I call it in remission? Like if you cannot guarantee that, the lung infection can come back, if we cannot guarantee that, the cold that we get every year, that you can get cold again, or sinus infection again, if you're calling that as a cure, why shouldn't we not call this as a cure? Why should we call it as a remission?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting perspective, and it's so hopeful because people ask that all the time, don't they? Can you actually be cured? So that's exactly. A very, very hopeful perspective. I like that. So
that's what I want to tell each and every person that sees me. I said, there is hope for improvement. You should not settle for a life which is limited from Hashimoto's. Do not let people tell you that this is the way you will have to live rest of your life. Once you get a stamp of a thyroid or a Hashimoto's, that's the end of your story. No, that's the beginning of a new story or a new chapter in your life. And this is an opportunity for you to improve your health, work on your Hashimoto's, and your quality of life will be much better than it has ever been before. You just have to take the right things. You just have to do the right things, and you will see amazing results.
So you mentioned before, we're talking about the triggers. And so if we remove the triggers and, get rid of the symptoms, but they can be re-triggered. So can you just go over what would be the core, the key triggers that set off the Hashimoto's thing that set off Hashimoto's? Yeah, what would be the triggers?
Absolutely. So I have divided triggers into five major categories. So the
Mm-hmm.
first category is what I call as food sensitivities. So food is medicine, we all know that, but food can also harm our body. Especially because of the genetic modifications around which is happening in the food industry, all the spraying which is happening around the food industry. There are certain foods which have led to triggering of Hashimoto's, and research proves that. So like foods like gluten, dairy, processed meat, processed food, sugar, all of those foods, we know that can definitely trigger Hashimoto's. So food sensitivities is a very important thing, which a lot of people are being diagnosed and can be a major reason of triggering Hashimoto's. Then the second category is nutritional deficiencies. So unfortunately, our food today is deficient in a lot of nutrients. Even though a lot of people are eating healthier diet than ever before, but even then, our food itself has a lot less nutrients as what it has, 20 years ago. Research proved it. There was a research study in United States which compared the nutritional value of food from 90s as compared to now. And they saw that several vitamins and minerals were actually on the lower level, which are all needed by thyroid, like magnesium, like zinc, like selenium, like iron. All of those minerals are actually much lower in our current food as compared to 20 years ago. So nutritional deficiency is a very important trigger which leads to Hashimoto's. The third category is toxins. Each and every day, more and more toxins are being put into our environment. Even though we try to live the cleanest life as we can, but still we do get exposed to, whether it's heavy metals, whether it is spraying of chemicals on our food, or whether it is mold toxins in the buildings that we live. All of those are responsible for triggering Hashimoto's. The fourth category is stress. Stress is a very big trigger for a lot of people, whether that is emotional stress, physical stress, spiritual stress, psychological stress. All of this stress basically puts too much pressure on a person's body and actually leads to triggering of autoimmune conditions. Now, this is a very important reason most of the people actually ignore or don't want to acknowledge, because the current like world we are living in, what we call as a corporate world, it's like, oh, this is healthy stress, just keep pushing yourself. I feel that that is an unnecessary thing, that any kind of stress basically can trigger autoimmune conditions. The last category is infections. So we get exposed to several infections. World today is dealing with the major infections, COVID, right? And there has been case studies that after COVID, people actually did get thyroiditis or thyroid conditions. And we have other viruses like Epstein-Barr virus, which has been associated with Hashimoto's. We already know about it. Parasites in your gut can be responsible. Lyme disease and other chronic infections can also lead that. Candida infections can also trigger Hashimoto's. So those are all the things. So these are the big five categories which are major triggers for people with Hashimoto's.
Yeah. And how do you suggest people work out what might have triggered their Hashimoto's? Because I know it's a unique set of circumstances for each person, and maybe it's a little bit of looking back and trying to piece together some pieces. But do you recommend people try to figure that out in a particular way?
So this is the tricky part, and this is where most of the people are not able to improve their situation, because unfortunately there might be just not one trigger, but multiple triggers that might have led to Hashimoto's. Now, again, like for a person, if they're trying to do it on their own, it becomes very exhausting and challenging. But people can always look back and look into their life. Okay, well, was my diet always perfect? Before my Hashimoto's triggered, whether I was exposed to certain amount of stress, and then it led to Hashimoto's. Whether I was living in an environment which might have toxins, or whether I have been exposed to any kind of infections, which we mentioned. So they can kind of brainstorm that a little bit. In fact, that aspect, I did make a quiz, which is what I call as a root cause quiz, which basically asks certain questions to people, and that can also help them to determine which category might be their root cause. Again, it's a quiz, so it is not perfect, but at least that is a starting point for people to get some thinking going on. Okay, this might be my problem. So that's something that certainly people can go on my website and assess that quiz.
Oh, good.
But otherwise,
I'll make sure. I know that there are a few quizzes in your book as well, and they mentioned them. So I'll make sure I link to the quiz in the show notes. So if you're listening and you want to do the quiz, I'll make sure it's easy for people to find.
Right. So as you said, my book definitely has each and every section about the triggers. I have a lot of questions that again people can ponder over. But then I made a score, on my website where people actually get a score, and that gives them an idea about mild, moderate, severe, and then which category they might be actually the number one category, and the other one might be the secondary category. So that might be the situation. But again, that's where working with a professional is very important. Like working with a professional like you, like who knows what can be the triggers, or any functional medicine doctors like me or anybody else who knows to look comprehensively of all those triggers, I think is very important for people also.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not a medical professional. I'm just a very passionate patient advocate. But I say that all the time. It's really important to build what I call your thyroid support team, which really has to include a doctor, preferably a functional doctor. And then there's a whole range of other different people that maybe come and go throughout time. But yeah, having that thyroid support team and it's complicated. And yeah, it does require, it's hard to be completely objective. And I think Hashimoto's patients do a remarkable job of actually getting to the bottom of a lot of things on their own because they're forced to. They're really motivated patients that get really frustrated and don't find medical help easy or quickly or early enough or early in their journey. I'm amazed can do it. And there is a lot of really great information, books now, podcasts, stuff online that gives people a lot of tools. But yeah, you're right. It's not the same as working with a doctor that really understands. So I've had my same doctor for about 15 years. And I think often she knows how my body responds better than I do. And as much as, I'm pretty proactive and understand things, it's really helpful to have that professional involvement. Absolutely.
I agree with that, and again, it's not about information, right? Like we are in the age where we have access to information right at our, like footsteps, right? Google has tons of information. A lot of people have books and podcasts, everything. So sometimes what happens with people is that, they get overloaded with information.
Yeah.
And that's what when people come to see me. So this example is this female who came to see me, 36-year-old lovely female, mother of 2 kids, came to see me for Hashimoto's, was diagnosed 3 years ago. Her symptoms were ongoing for last 10 years. Every time she will go for blood work, her TSH was being checked. It was told to her that, oh, your TSH is normal, you're fine. She was like, but I don't feel good. I have all the symptoms for thyroid, and she obviously did not knew the word for Hashimoto's. So then finally, like after several years, her blood work did get caught up. She was diagnosed with Hashimoto's or thyroid problem and was put on medicine. Nothing changed. Her symptoms kept on getting worse. So that's where she started researching on her own. She went into that research mode so much that she had at least 10 different diets that she could follow.
Yeah.
And then she tried one diet for 5 days and the other one for 10 days and the other one for a month. And she didn't know what to do. Then she tried all these different supplements. Somebody said, try this supplement or try that supplement. Again, she tried each and everything, but she was not getting better. So that's where she approached me. Hey, Dr. Gupta, I'm not your regular patient. I'm this patient who have researched a lot. I've tried everything, but nothing is working. Can you help me? I said, it's not about information. You have the right information. You have too much information. The problem is that, do you know how to implement this information for yourself? Not each and every supplement is good for you. Not each and every diet, is applicable to each and every person. Yes, some basic concepts are there, but we need to go beyond those. So that's where when we started working, we identified that, she was kind of following certain foods, which was not good for her body. Her body was telling her, but she just kept pushing for it. She had a lot of underlying inflammation. Her mitochondria was not working, but she was taking supplements which were actually overburdening her mitochondria, or actually was not letting her body to heal. And she thought that she was doing the right thing. So we actually made her plan much simpler. So I said, okay, let's do it in a stepwise manner. Let's first kind of find your triggers, which we did. And then let's address these triggers, by following a specific diet, doing some supplements, and then let's see how that works. Within 4 months, her symptoms improved dramatically. She was feeling so tired all the time that she would have to take a nap during the day just so that she can function. She had brain fog. She was gaining weight like crazy. Doesn't matter what diet she was follow. She was having IBS symptoms like constipation or stomach pain. Within 4 months, all of these symptoms got better. Her energy was so much that she would actually enjoy like time with her kids. She did not have to take a nap. Her constipation was gone, gut problems were improved, her brain fog was gone. So she said it within 4 months, my life is like totally like I'm a new person. Well, I've been trying to struggle on my own for last 1 year and I was not able to get anywhere.
Yeah.
So that's the
That's
situation
a
that
good point.
happens.
That's a good
So that's the
point.
situation that happens with some people that, like some basic things, that everybody should do, make sense. But some people need beyond those basic things, but sometimes, like it's difficult for them to implement on their own.
Yeah. It does make sense. I think sometimes too, the stress of trying to do all the things can make it worse. And so what you just described is simplifying things, maybe working through things one at a time, or in a manageable way, which would take a lot of the stress out of it, I would think.
Exactly. And that's the situation. A lot of people, when they come to see me, and they hear the plan, they say, this looks like a simple plan. I said, exactly. So if you can get results from a simple plan, why do you want to follow a complicated plan?
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
And they'll say, are you sure this will work? I said, I've done it for a long time. Just do this for 4 months. And if it doesn't work, then, you can obviously leave us, or, I will say that, yes, it doesn't work. I'm not asking you for 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. I'm just asking you for 4 to 6 months. That's it. And luckily till yet, there has not been a single person who has came back and said, Dr. Gupta, I worked for you for 4 months and I'm the same miserable person. Everybody comes back and says, okay, Dr. Gupta, I cannot believe that in 4 months, my life is so much different than what it used to be. So, and she always says, wish I knew about this before, that nobody, is talking about these things. And I said, exactly. That is just these are the things that nobody's talking about. And this is so simple for a lot of people to do it.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned before that I know you talk quite a bit about in your book is the connection between the thyroid and the mitochondria. Would you be able to explain, people might not even have heard what the mitochondria is, what it does. So can you just explain a little bit about that and then that connection with the thyroid? Because I hadn't really thought about it. Well, certainly not recently in the way that you've explained it in your book. So could you explain that to us now?
Absolutely. So let's go back to a little bit of the basics. So again, coming back to Hashimoto's. What is Hashimoto's? Hashimoto's is an autoimmune condition where your body is producing antibodies, which is destroying your own internal organs. Mainly, it is a thyroid gland which is destroying. Now we feel, or the traditional medicine doctors feel, that all the symptoms that Hashimoto's patients go through is because of this thyroid hormone. But my research actually suggested that it is not only about the thyroid hormone, it is also an important structure in your body called mitochondria. So what is mitochondria? Mitochondria is a powerhouse of your cell. Mitochondria is responsible for giving your body energy. If we had no mitochondria, we will not be living. So mitochondria is a small organelle which is present in each and every cell of your body from head to toe. Now, there is a connection that exists between thyroid and mitochondria. Okay, so thyroid basically produces thyroid hormone, which goes to the mitochondria and gives the mitochondria signals to function better. Okay, now this can actually be explained like a car. Imagine your body is like a car. The gas pedal in the car is your thyroid or thyroid hormone. The actual engine in your car is the mitochondria. So whenever you're driving a car, you press the gas pedal if you want to run the car more faster or you want to get more energy. So that the gas pedal send the signal to the engine to produce more power and your car goes faster. So the same thing happens, with your body. Now just imagine, like if your engine in the car is not working, doesn't matter how much gas pedal you are going to push, your car is not going to go faster, right? So same thing, the traditional medicine is what they're doing. They're trying to push more on the gas pedal by giving people more thyroid hormone. but they are not doing anything about the engine of our body, the mitochondria. And that's exactly the reason that people with Hashimoto's do not feel better. Now,
Uh-huh.
look at the symptoms which are associated with Hashimoto's of low energy, of brain fog, of gaining weight, of gut problems, mood changes. Now, these are all associated with mitochondrial dysfunction because
Mm-hmm.
mitochondria is producing energy and it is not able to do it, then your brain doesn't work, your gut doesn't work, obviously, like your metabolic process doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So we are actually misled into believing that it is a deficiency of thyroid hormone which is leading these problems. Actually, it is a dysfunction of mitochondria which is responsible for producing all these results.
So what do we do then? So I remember actually, as you're talking, I'm reminded, and I can't think who it was that used this term, but I have heard the term mind your mitochondria. Is that, I'm not sure who, anyway, I can't think of where I heard that term, but in that sense of mind your mitochondria, look after your mitochondria. So how do we then look after it? Is looking after our thyroid or our autoimmunity, does that help the mitochondria, or do you do something specific to support the mitochondria and that then flows onto the thyroid? What do we do?
Right. So it's, as I said, it's both the problem, thyroid and the mitochondria. So you have to work on both simultaneously to get them better.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, we start with the basics. I feel food has a lot of power. So if we, first of all, we use food to help the thyroid as well as the mitochondria. So certain foods which help, the mitochondria to function better is good fats.
Okay.
Like, your nuts and seeds, your olive oil, your ghee, your coconut oil, good fatty fish, all of those good fats, which are missing in our diet currently, because fat has got such a bad name in the last decade that everybody is avoiding fat completely, even the good fats. And that's one of the reasons that obviously a mitochondria is not functioning, because it does need good fats. So that's one thing that we introduce back into the diets of majority of the people, who have Hashimoto's, good fats in their diet. And the second thing is good colored vegetables. So vegetables are obviously, everybody has heard from their grandmas, eat your veggies,
Yeah.
eat your veggies, but we all don't do it, right? But research time and again has shown that the vegetables have the power to support our body, especially colorful vegetables, whether the greens are there, the purple colored vegetables, the red colored vegetables, all these different colorful vegetables have different phytonutrients which support the mitochondria by reducing the reactive oxygen species which are present in mitochondria. Now, reactive oxygen species are basically kind of a rust. How iron gets rust and it gets weaker, over the course of time. So mitochondria has these reactive oxygen species which accumulate over time and actually start rusting the mitochondria. So it doesn't work good. And all these vegetables, removes this rust and actually improves the functioning of mitochondria. So that's the power of these, like all these good non-starchy, colorful vegetables that people should eat on the regular basis. Now, whenever I tell that, people say, yeah, I eat my veggies. I said, well, I'm not talking about eating like one carrot or just a couple of peas, like I'm talking about at least 8 to 9 servings of vegetables in a day,
Oh,
not in a
wow.
week.
That's a lot. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
So
that's
that's
the amount of
really eating
vegetables.
vegetables really 3 times a day. Like each meal you would need to be eating vegetables to get that amount.
Exactly. So what I say to my clients is that if you look at your plate, it doesn't matter which meal it is. If half of your plate or more than half of your plate is veggies, bingo. That's the only time, like you will say that I have had enough veggies. If it is less than that, then you are not there, which is difficult. I agree, it is not easy, but that's the amount of veggies which is needed for a body to function properly. So
And
that's the second thing.
Can I ask about that, Dr. Gupta? Do you could you put some in a smoothie or a soup, or like does it matter if they're cooked or raw, or like are there any hacks you've got to help us? I mean, 8 to 9 cups a day is quite a lot. So are there any tips for getting it in?
Absolutely. Yes. So first of all, it doesn't matter whether you eat them raw or cooked, that is perfectly fine. Obviously, we don't want to fry them. We don't want to overcook them to the point that they lose all the nutrients. But, like otherwise, it is fine. I'm a big fan of smoothies because I can jam pack so many things in my morning smoothies So each and every of my patient goes on a morning smoothie, okay, where we add a lot of different veggies. The good part about smoothies is that because you add so many things, it can mask a lot of things which do not taste good, especially the greens, the spinach,
Yeah.
the kale. People do not enjoy them eating them raw or like anything. So I tell them to add it to their smoothies in the morning smoothies. So the green smoothies are wonderful. They can pack a lot of nutrients. So that's one way of getting your veggies, in the morning. And then after that, blending it into like salads or soups, or sauteing them, or like even baking them. Those are all perfect ways of, getting the veggies. Even like snacks, just kind of keeps, some snack options, like, get some carrots or, get some, celery sticks and then use some hummus or, like your guacamole. Those can be good snacking options. So again, as you keep on doing more and more, like researching on things, then you can find that you can incorporate veggies very easily into your diet. But I think smoothies are the best ways. Everybody should get like their morning smoothies, like in that way, they can get so many nutrients.
Okay. And do you add protein to your smoothies?
Yep. So that's the third thing. Good quality protein is also good quality protein is very, very important again for this diet. Now, again, most of us, the relying factor on the proteins is we are going for whey or other like, or dairy protein. While we do not believe in dairy protein, we want to kind of get protein from the actual sources, which can be chicken, fish, and turkey. I'm a big proponent of getting plant-based proteins. But just because like getting a good quality animal protein can be challenging from the protein powder aspect. But like if you have a good source of collagen peptides, or collagen protein, that's also great. But definitely adding good quality protein powder is important. And then having organic, and like grass fed or wild caught chicken, fish, and turkey is also awesome to add to get that good quality protein.
Not to your smoothie. You're not talking about adding chicken or turkey to your smoothie, I'm assuming.
People do it,
Oh, really?
I'm very surprised.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
I mean, I was at a couple of people. I get this chicken, I just blend it. I was like, really? I
Oh,
said,
wow. Oh, gosh.
yeah.
I've never tried a chicken smoothie. That sounds cool.
Yes, I could not even imagine. I was like, okay, if it works for you, that's fine. I'm not going to do it.
Soup, maybe. I can see the chicken in the soup. And
Yeah.
so is protein then the not talking just about smoothies, but actual protein, animal protein part of that diet as well? Good fats, colorful vegetables, and protein. Is that right?
Protein is important, right? And then again, like it's not that so everybody has to be consuming animal protein. Like a lot of people work with me as a vegan or a vegetarian, and I think there are good sources of vegan or vegetarian protein also that people can get, especially nuts and seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds, pumpkin seeds. Like they have good quality protein in them. Good proteins powders actually, mix a lot of these different ingredients or getting it sourced from different places, which is again is great. The good part about vegetable protein is that it is easier on the stomach, so easy to digest for a lot of people. That's what I've noticed. So people who have a lot of gut issues, I actually start them from a protein powder which is more vegetable based, and then moving on to animal protein. I think that works a little bit better for them.
Okay.
But as I said, you don't have to be eating animal protein, or or some people have this question: should I be vegan or vegetarian? I said not really. So it's not that you have to be a certain category. It's just basically you choose the right quality protein. That's more important than going into categories.
Yeah, I think it's one of the questions that I had. I get asked this sometimes, or not even asked, but people say that they've become vegan or vegetarian, but I think vegan or plant-based for their thyroid health. And I mean, I'm not a health professional, so I don't know, but having listened to a lot of doctors and, thyroid experts over a period of time, I've never once heard one recommend that as kind of a preferred diet for Hashimoto's. Most people seem to recommend animal, like clean, best sourced, grass-fed, all of that animal protein as a preferred source of protein. And so that's why I was curious to ask you, because you do talk about diet and I don't, that's not my, I only know what I've heard other people say. So do you think you can follow a fairly strict vegan and or vegetarian diet with Hashimoto's in the longer term, and that be good, healthy? Like, can that work for some people?
Right. So first of all, the question that, whether it should completely be carnivorous, should completely be vegan is good or not. What the majority of the research suggests is that a plant-based diet is the most healthiest diet for people. Now, plant-based diet doesn't mean a vegan or a vegetarian. What it means is that your majority of the food should be coming from plant-based. But then, like a little bit of animal protein added to it definitely improves the quality of the feed or the vitamins and the minerals and everything that you get.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the diet that, no doubt, wherever you go, I know there are a lot of different debates and everybody has their own point.
Yeah.
But the majority of the research suggests is that a plant-based diet is the most healthiest one. Now, I do not recommend everybody to go vegan or vegetarian, because there are certain things which you are going to miss out if you are going to be vegan or vegetarian. They're not good sources of vitamin B12 in vegetarian diet. Your iron levels tend to be on the lower side, if you're a vegan or a vegetarian. And then some other like zinc levels and stuff are also slightly on the lower side. So certain things which are needed by thyroid definitely are on the lower side if you are a vegan or a vegetarian. But that being said, some people have their cultural differences. Some people want to follow that particular diet.
Yeah.
So what I tell them is that then you have to supplement these things by the way of supplements. Okay. So if you want to be a vegan or vegetarian, that is perfectly fine. That's your choice. But then we have to make sure that you're getting all the nutrients that your body needs.
And I guess given nutrient deficiency is one of the things that you said is a trigger. Is that what you mean? Like making sure, well, I guess for anyone, but particularly if you aren't eating any animal proteins, really make sure that those you're not deficient and you're getting things tested.
Yes. Yeah. Right, exactly. Yeah. So obviously we can get things tested, but even without testing, we know that these things are going to be deficient if you're a vegan or a vegetarian. So then those things should be supplemented, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
So that's like that's a given thing, that if you're a vegan or vegetarian, I'm a vegetarian. Because of my personal beliefs and things. But then I make sure that I take these supplements, because I know that these are important for me. Like that, my family needs it and stuff. So we take these supplements, but that's a conscious choice that we have made.
Yeah.
So that's a similar thing. But if a person who is like eating an animal protein suddenly says, oh no, I've heard that the vegan diet is the best thing or a vegetarian diet is the best thing, I want to switch over. I said, if you're switching over for a very important reason, that's up to you. But if you're switching over only for thyroid, you don't have to. Definitely there is value for animal protein where you source it from, and good, clean animal protein definitely is going to add value to your thyroid or your Hashimoto's, no doubt about it. So you don't have to switch over.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, I think that's a really helpful explanation, and making the best, because we all make our own choices, and maybe there's periods of time where we're better at having a break from processing, different foods, just like when we take out, the gluten, the grains and the dairy and, some of those things. Would it be similar? Like you could actually have a break away perhaps from, say, processing animal protein if your gut needed a rest from that, and then go back to it? Like, is there a place for that sort of, I don't even know what that would be, but, just giving your digestive system a bit of a rest?
Absolutely. So some people, as I shared with you, come to see me, they have very bad digestion. They have, like horrible issues, with digesting food, especially the protein piece of it. So I tell them, why don't you take a break? Let's try to use food which is easy to digest, easy to assimilate for your system. And definitely red meat is one of those foods which can be difficult to digest for a lot of folks. So we give them a break, build up their gut, and then the gut is much more stronger, and then we introduce it back, and they're doing better with it. Now they can tolerate it. So absolutely giving different breaks at different points is very good. Whenever people start working with me, definitely we try to remove each and every food which can cause inflammation. Giving them a very clean diet, which, is not only anti-inflammatory, but also supports the thyroid, supports the mitochondria, supports, their adrenals, supports their gut, all of that stuff, to give their body a jump start. If you do that diet or these things for at least a couple of months, now you are in good shape. Now your body can tolerate much more. So then, we can reintroduce things, and then we can make your diet wider. So So it doesn't mean that you have to live this restricted diet for rest of your life. And that's what, again, most people have been doing. They go on very, very restrictive diets and they follow it for like several months to years. And now they felt better, but they're now feeling worse. Again, being very restrictive, your body needs a lot of vitamins and nutrients and things. The restriction of the diet, again, doesn't allow the body to get all of those things. So we get into another trouble. So I think, again, it's a very important decision, or very important to know what nutrition you are getting through your food. It's just not about carbohydrates or proteins or fats. It's also about vitamins. It's also about minerals, all of the antioxidants. So all of those things need to be factored.
So do you recommend that people get those vitamins, minerals tested on a regular basis so that you know whether you're deficient or not?
So the problem with those things is that the regular labs, cannot check for all the vitamins and minerals. There are only few things they can check for, like vitamin D, like vitamin B12, your iron levels, that's it. But if you want to check all your B vitamins, if you want to check all your minerals, in a proper fashion, then you have to use these functional medicine labs. So there are only certain labs which will do the detailed testing of all the vitamins and minerals. Which obviously, like most of and then people have to pay out of pocket to cover them to these labs, but they're so much useful. So when people start working with me, I do recommend them getting these tests for once. So at least we know what we are dealing with.
Yeah.
And then after that, if they can repeat it, that's great. But I don't recommend them getting it every few months. Once we know what we're dealing with, we work on them maybe once a year. It will be a good idea to know where your body is going.
Yeah.
So you can keep fine tuning your body that way.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Just to know where you're at often is helpful. I want to ask one more question. What was it I had? You mentioned at the beginning, that you when you're working with people, you're really working through a three-step process. So can you just explain what that three-step? I'm sure we've covered it all in what we've talked about, but what would be that three-step process, just so people can have that in their head?
Right. So the three-step process, the very first step is finding the trigger, how we kind of spoke about the 5 categories of trigger. So first, identifying where that trigger is for those people. The second step is start fixing your thyroid and the mitochondria. So in that aspect, we spoke about the diet, which is great. Then we have certain supplements that we introduce, which are good for thyroid and mitochondria. So that's the second step. The third step is final step, where we actually remove all the toxicities, which in first place was causing the thyroid problem, which includes the stress, which includes infections, which includes toxins. So all of those things that we work on the third step, so that finally we got that plunge out. And then finally, we have this new thyroid or new person who can live thyroid free or symptom free for a long time. So those are the basic 3 steps that we follow in our program.
Okay. And you said that's sort of largely over a 4 to 6 month period, roughly.
That is correct. Yeah. 4 to 6 months, jump starting a lot of people's life. Most people do much, much better in those time. Yeah, completely working on all these. Some people are really sick. They have not only one problem, they have at least 3 or 4 autoimmune diseases. They're completely what we call as a mess with so many diseases. They can get better, but then, it takes a longer time for them to get better. But for an average patient, 4 to 6 months, is enough for them to get better.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if someone's listening and they've fairly newly been diagnosed with Hashimoto's, where do you suggest they start?
I think starting with the basics is great. I think 70 to 80% of people, if they just do some basic things, that they can get phenomenal results. Basic things will be just cleaning up your environment. Like, first of all, clean up your diet. Get rid of the bad food, the processed meats. If you can't get rid of the gluten and the dairy, awesome. That is a good place. Eat your veggies, eat a lot of veggies, eat some good fats. I think that is great place to start off with, with a diet. The second thing to start, which will be wonderful for most of the folks, is working on a stress management technique. Because the stress is all over our world, whether it's personal stress in our work life, or kids, or the political environment, or anything that we're living in. Stress is all the time with us. And we do not do anything for self-care. So it is very important that each and every person incorporates some of these techniques, whether that is deep breathing or meditation or yoga, something that they have at least for 10, 15 minutes. That's it, each and every day in their life. That is going to make a huge difference, in their symptoms and also improving their kind of disease process. Those are two best things that people can start off with.
Yeah.
Obviously supplements and stuff, I think a little bit more complicated based on what is going on with them. But again, some basic supplements like vitamin D, like zinc and selenium, vitamin B12, those are all great supplements, do not have much side effects that a lot of people can take, without any issues. But I think first improving your diet, then improving your stress management would be awesome place to start off before you kind of add on other things.
Yeah, excellent. And like you said, that just pairing it back to something simple, that's been really, really helpful. Well, Dr. Gupta, I could probably keep talking to you all night, but at some point I've probably got to go to bed, and I'm not sure what time it is for you, but I don't want to keep you any longer. You've been so helpful. Lots of really, very clear information. And I think, if you're listening, want to get your hands on Dr. Gupta's book. It's called Reversing Hashimoto's. It's very clear, lots of practical and really helpful information. And if people want to connect with you, Dr. Gupta, how should they do that? Where should we send people?
Yeah, so my website is the best resource for people. It's called anshulguptamd.com. A lot of good information for people. I like to write research-based blogs so people can get information from there. And that's also the place where people actually can start working with me. So right now we are offering like special offers to people where I'm offering limited number of free evaluations call to people to kind of talk about Hashimoto's and see if they will be good fit for a program. So people can go on our website, anshulguptamd.com, and click on the link which says free evaluation call with Dr. Gupta, and they can avail that offer right now to kind of, see what we have to offer to them and get started on the healing journey.
Excellent. Well, and I'll make sure I put all the links in the show notes too. And I know you're on social media, so we'll link to all of that. But look, thank you so much for your time tonight or this morning for you. Just really appreciate your wisdom, your knowledge, your experience, and just that kindness I think that you show.
Thank you so much. It was really a pleasure coming over here. I again want to tell each and every patient or every person who is suffering from Hashimoto's that there is hope for you to get better. Do not settle for a life which is limited from Hashimoto's. You are, you can get a life which is filled with happiness, mental clarity, and good quality of life. So do not settle for a life which is limited by it. Just do the right things and you will see phenomenal results.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Let's Talk Thyroid. I would love it if you enjoyed it, if you would hit subscribe and the bell. That would be really helpful. Even more helpful actually would be to share it with someone else who you know has thyroid issues or you think would benefit from listening. That really is part of my mission, I suppose, is to spread the message of positive and practical approach to managing your thyroid health so that people really kind of have more energy to get on with living their life and not just kind of trudging through each day. So spreading that word really genuinely helps other people feel better, live better, be better. The best way that you can connect with me is through my website, which is annabellebateman.com. From there, really, you'll be able to connect in all the other ways. I would love it if you would join my Facebook community group. There's lots of great support there. It's all free. That's just being with like-minded people. But from the website, you can also book a strategy session with me. So if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, not too sure where to start, then book a strategy session. There's also freebies to download and links to look at my online courses or purchase some essential oils or my cookbook. So that's really the hub, would be annabellebateman.com. But look forward to connecting with you and just being in this thyroid health journey together. Have a great day. Bye.
The information presented and discussed in this podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease and should not be used as a substitute for proper advice from a qualified professional.